last week?
Yeah, I was in Argentina. I just got to Poland Monday night, and I was in Argentina for about 7 days. So excuse me if you just heard my voice crack. Yeah, I was working with the international football, rugby, and basketball group down there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I speak some Spanish, and it always kind of pulls at my heartstrings to be able to go back to a country and try to communicate a little bit and practice my Spanish. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. How you adjusted to the travel back and forth?
I'm based out of Europe at the moment. So I'm currently based out of Munich, but kind of Poland is taking a lot of my time right now. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Cool. Well, people will log on kind of as we're going. So let's get rolling and we'll go from there. So I know we mentioned an email about maybe just doing a little bit about you and just catching everybody up, and then we'll kind of see what questions pop out of that.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Thank you. First off, good afternoon to everyone. I'm Coach Nicole Rodriguez. I've been simply a human performance coach for about 12 years now. Kind of started my career with American-based sports, and for the last 6 years, I've been kind of focusing on international sports, so international football and rugby at the moment. And yeah, I've been traveling the globe for about 6 years. I do about 100,000 miles per year, and basically, yeah, my job is to manage the players off the field. So whether that's a lot of it in the professional setting is mindset. So whether that's mindset, kind of supporting them mentally through their nutrition, because we have a full staff with us. But my main role is I'm the movement specialist in all of the projects that I work on. So whether it's kind of bringing them back from injury or kind of keeping them on the field with kind of running base or field base work, that's kind of my main gig, if you will. So yeah.
Cool. So how do you manage all that from such a distance? Like, how does that process work?
In terms of managing the players.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I usually spend like an intensive amount of time with them. So usually in international football, you have like 3 to 4 weeks to really get your hands dirty with them before they start their season. So you have like an intensive period, and so part of my job is to go in and analyze and assess kind of what's going on with the player. We'll kind of work through strategies for about 3 to 4 weeks. And we've kind of made it really simple in terms of identifying based off of testing, based off of moving, doing movement analysis with them, like kind of what they need. So whether they need position work, which is kind of their range of motion, mobility, stability, whether they need patterning work, which is their coordination, or whether they need just kind of a bigger engine in terms of their power. So we kind of break it up into those categories, figure out what buckets they belong to, and then attack them from there. So like we spend an intensive amount of time with them, and then basically I'll come in once a quarter and check in with them.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
That's really cool. Does that raise any questions for anybody? Not, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like the coolest part about that, not being with a particular team full time is like you really have to teach them self-management. So, you got to be like, hey, here are the keys, you're driving this. I'm going to show you how to drive it. But it's up to them to kind of maintain it. So I think that's like the coolest part about my job, because I don't get to quote unquote hold their hand throughout the entire season is, I have to make sure that they're, doing, individual work on their own. So that's kind of, I guess, what keeps me going through all this is kind of giving them the autonomy.
So how do you facilitate that? How do you kind of figure out, what kind of, I guess, just basically from the start, how to connect with different players and get them to the point where they feel like they feel competent enough to take ownership over their process?
Yeah. It's funny, like working with elite sportsmen. Mainly I work with men's sports. I haven't worked too much with women in the last couple of years, but it's interesting because you kind of have to, number one, build a relationship. Everyone always talks about that. But in the professional setting, like it's interesting because I literally like study the X's and O's. So, okay, this is what the player needs. Here's the protocol. Here's what we're going to try to tackle first. And we kind of get the game plan, so to speak, ready. And then literally the next question that I ask myself, I write it down. I always write it down is, okay, in this particular player or sport, like what exactly am I going to do to build trust? And how am I going to show empathy? So it's, the basic relatedness, but that's literally what I try to figure out. Okay, with this particular population athlete team, it's just like, what am I going to do to establish trust? And what am I going to do to kind of show them empathy? And honestly, like when you can tackle those things immediately, like they'll buy in pretty quick. So that's kind of my standard operating procedure, if you will. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Questions, anybody?
Yes. Nicole, first off, Kevin Carr spoke highly of you when we did the CFSC. He said you use this lovely coaching analogy about having a backpack with sand in it, and you stab the sand, and there's sand everywhere. I thought that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, so you're with these people, these elite guys and gals for like a small window of time. Do you ever run into situations where there's whatever the movement may be in the program isn't up to par, and you have to kind of fix that, if that makes sense? Like a squat turns into a good morning type thing, or the techniques iffy or not so much?
Yeah, I mean, you have athletes that'll be kind of dominant in certain movement patterns, if you will. But, when I work with international football, so soccer, it's funny, like we don't do a lot of gym work with them. So we have to figure out ways to get them strong, get them explosive through different means. And we're lucky because we have tools such as Kaiser. So it doesn't seem like they're lifting weights. So we can work on their power and we can kind of groom their patterns with, like a Kaiser power squat machine, so to speak. So it's kind of fun and easier with them. When we get to working with some of the rugby guys, they can usually execute the pattern or the movement that we want them to do because they're so strong. Usually it's kind of with them, like, how do we do that without pain because of the nature of their contact and everything like that. So, I kind of build everything on a continuum. So whether it's kind of movement based or strength based, depending on the movement pattern. So I kind of have a continuum that I like to kind of work off of. So you get that all the time, but I find, in my world, like they adapt pretty quick. So it's actually a little easier. I think it goes back to what Mike Boyle used to say. I used to work for Mike and the boys down at MBSC for about 6 years. And, Mike always said, hey man, if you can teach kids, you'll probably be okay kind of being able to teach an adult how to do things. So I always go back to that, and I make it, literally, you're working with like elite men and women, and the easier that you can make it, the better. So I always say, and I'll kind of answer your question directly here, when I find that they can't execute a particular movement, my first step isn't always a regression. My first step is always, how do I slow down the velocity, or how do I slow down the movement so I can, kind of give them time to catch up with that. And that usually helps. So, cool. Yeah. So.
Well, when you said, going back to the trust and relatedness part and saying, you had the first question you ask yourself is, how do I build that with this individual that's sitting in front of me from a context of like the individual and their sport and kind of nested it all in those things. What are some of the things that you do to do that? Like to maybe even just figure out like, hey, who the hell's sitting in front of me right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I always have, like, any athlete that I work with, I read up a lot about them. Like number one, their name, and how to say it correctly. It's absolutely key. So anyone that I work with, I always have a name, a bio, and then a picture. So I kind of always go based off of that. And then I kind of start to establish how I want to present myself, because I've been in a lot of tough situations. I mean, obviously I'm a woman in a male dominated industry working in male sports. So I've had to kind of figure out ways, like literally how to like wear my hair. And right now I'm a little relaxed right here because I just got done with practice, but like depending on the sport, like I have to wear my hair a particular way. I have to wear like certain colors. So if it's more of like a strength or power sport, I'm in darker colors. If it's more, a women's sport or international football, I'm in usually lighter colors. And I'm telling you, all that stuff has an effect on like the initial contact that I have with the players. So, and I'm not sure, if these are the things that I have to take into consideration, being a woman. But I think being, a man or a woman, those are all things that we should all be mindful of, to essentially establish that initial trust. And then in terms of their empathy, I just find, we talk to their agents, we talk to their coaches, we talk to their teammates, and we try to gather as much information about them. And in that first situation, like I find that if you can find one-on-one time with them initially, man, you're golden. So if you can go visit them at the physio table, if you can have a conversation with them. I've been trained in massage therapy and stretch to win. So, at the end of the session, again, my goal is to get one-on-one with them, and I put my physical hands on them and I kind of work with them or stretch them. And I mean, I think stretch to win is great. And so, it's kind of one of those things, but I do it more for the physical contact to kind of build that relationship. So
that's really smart. Well, I'm interested. Well, I have a couple questions, but I'm interested in the colors. So where did you learn about that?
Honestly, man, I've struggled in a lot of situations because I have a very strong personality. I was raised military. So I'm very, very structured. And if you ever met my father, you'd be like, damn, that's where she gets it from. So yes, I've been in a lot of tough situations, culturally, because I've traveled, the entire world. And I've been in a lot of tough situations where I just wasn't accepted, be it for whatever reason. I used to have short hair. So I think that affected a lot of things too. So when I had shorter hair, I had to kind of soften up a little bit with different colors. So that's actually where I initially learned it, was just kind of how do I create this balance between being authoritative without being an authoritarian.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah. So when I started having to figure all that out, I started playing with what I was wearing in my dress. And like, I've honestly, man, I've kind of figured it out in terms of like when I can wear shorts, when I can't wear shorts, what colors. When I work with American football, I can't have like any flow in my hair. Like it has to be like slicked back, or I have to wear a hat or things like that. So yeah, so those are all like the tricks of the trade that I had to learn. But, I think once I really learned that about 4 years ago. And I'm telling you, man, like for the last 4 years, I've been able to work with any and all populations, just kind of working on my delivery in terms of my physical presence. And yeah.
Just fitting yourself to their context.
Always. Yeah. So.
And that's just been a process of observation. Like you just like notice people responded to you differently, and you're like, oh, well, fuck, that was different.
Yeah. Like they're more closed. I'm also very like an affectionate person. Like if I'm talking to you, like I'll just be, rapping with you, chatting, and my hand will be on your shoulder. So, and I've learned to kind of introduce my personality. So yes, I've just learned all that, by failing, number one, but number two, I was introduced to Amy Cuddy, who had that excellent TED Talk, about 3-4 years ago, maybe more than that, actually, about 4 years ago. And I remember doing a podcast on the Strength Code podcast many years ago when I first learned, kind of managing your volume, your pitch, and your rate. So like also with that, I usually talk pretty fast. So for me, if I talk loud and I talk fast and I want someone to pay attention to what I'm saying, then I'll, lower down the volume a little bit and start slowing down, my rate. And as you can tell, I mean, right now I'm just a little tired and a little jet lagged. So the pitch of my voice is rather low. But those are all the things that I have to manage. So a little bit just learning the hard way, and I've studied a lot of it in that context.
Cool. Yeah. Can you offer up any resources?
I've done a lot of personal development.
Sure.
And since I only kind of see, I don't know, a couple, like 5 or 6 people on it, this is kind of a easier platform to share. But I actually, I went through extensive personal development and therapy for about 2 years. Okay. There's a bunch of different, mindfulness books. There's one that really kind of caught my attention. It's called You Are Here. And it's a simple PDF. Like I can easily share it with all of you guys, but that was like the initial book. It was an ebook that I read that just kind of like blew my mind on like being present and things like that. There's been a couple different staples, like You Are Here, Crucial Conversations.
Sure.
Crucial Conversations was a big one for me because I'm a very emotional coach. Like, man, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. So I kind of had to start learning my triggers. Like for me, like I have one specific trigger. And when that goes off, I know, okay, slow down your voice or lower down your voice, slow down your rate, and just start to listen and let other people talk. So I've read a lot of books on mindfulness, and I try to practice meditation, but it's still really hard for me. So it's not easy. So that's kind of been my go-to resource, to be honest, was my therapist. And, he's always, sending me, PDFs and things like that. But You Are Here, Crucial Conversations, and then, all your basic How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like that's just a book that I literally read once a year. So those are a couple of things there.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Does that bring anything up for anybody?
Yeah. So where are you guys at in your program right now?
How far in are we?
Yeah, just kind of the module. You're in the coaching science module?
Finishing up coaching right now. Yeah, this is the last week of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Then we just have, we did the first one's called Your Success. That's the first month. So it's basically started the personal development work, and then also, all the organizational stuff, and then programming after that. Then we do coaching. And then the last module is professional expansion. So different things like writing and doing videos and how to make a podcast and all those things if you want to do them.
Yeah. And I would say that that's actually the one thing that I haven't done a ton of. I'm very much a live person. And I just started writing, through journaling. So I've read a couple of books on how to journal. And so it's just like, starting basic stuff like, hey man, like when you first wake up, it's kind of the Tony Robbins, Lewis Howell stuff. It's just like, you have your 3 points of gratitude. And just kind of starting to identify like how you're feeling. So I feel like writing through my personal development work has encouraged me and giving me the patience to actually sit down and write articles and write pieces and things like that. So that's been a big change in my career in the last 2 years. And I'm actually, I'm writing and developing a long-term athletic development model. I've actually, I've worked for Axos for the last 6 years, and I actually resigned in October. I resigned from my full-time role, which everyone thought I was crazy, and I haven't like made it like public or anything like that, or just like I haven't made like a big announcement like everyone does, because I'm still involved as a consultant, but I'm developing a long-term athletic development model at the moment. And it's been, again, the point is it's been nice to be able to write and journal, because it's been helpful with my next steps.
That's awesome. So, good for you. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying like the goal with the youth is, using performance or physical development to help build character and kind of, design their lifestyle, so to speak. So that's kind of the goal. So yeah. Hence the reason I'm parking it in Europe for a couple years, starting in April, because there's just a lot of needs. I think there's needs all over the world, but right now I have a tremendous amount of opportunity in Europe in terms of youth development. So I'm just kind of, packing the suitcase and going. So surprise on my end.
That's rad. Good for you.
Yeah.
So you were doing some like coaches, like educational seminar-y type things, right? Too previously.
Yep.
Are you still doing that?
I'll do that more from a seminar, not a seminar, but like more of on a conference end of things. So I managed the Access Education Department for 6 years. So we have 3 4-day events. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of our performance mentorships. And then we have some workshops and online education. So yeah, I managed that department for Exos for a very long time. And it was good, man. Like I wasn't good at it in the beginning, I'll be honest. I actually, I firmly believe that, Harry Truman says you can be successful in life as long as, you don't mind who gets the credit. And so like, it was kind of hard for me to jump on stage and be, kind of like the lead person, so to speak, in the beginning. Cause I kind of always took the back seat. So yeah, but I did that for 6 years, and man, the first 3 years, it was tough. It was really tough, like, working with, 30, 40 people in Europe speaking different languages and, these people pay a high dollar to come to our education event. It's really expensive actually. So it was a lot of pressure, but yeah, I did that for 6 years. And honestly, it was, amazing to be able to teach people what I was doing for the last couple of years, because that just actually strengthened my coaching. I don't think teaching is for everyone, but when you can literally get up in front of 50 people and explain a concept extremely well and either dive in deep or make it really simple, like it's been really cool. It's been really cool. And like I just worked with 20 different football coaches here in Poland, and hence the reason I was a little delayed. And I'm talking international football in Poland. Like they do no performance training. So I had to like show them videos of like the German national team training. And then I had to show them videos of an Italian football club training. And I said, man, here's one end of the continuum and here's the other end of the continuum. So it's been kind of cool to use that 6 years of teaching and then jumping in front of some pretty high level people and just trying to, teach them literally the simple things, like literally like how to warm up. It's just like, how do you blend plyos, movement skills, and warm up all in a 15, 20 minute block? So yeah, it's been a cool experience for the last 6 years. So yeah.
It's rad. Have you found that the course of your personal development work has helped you better that's the wrong word, help your athletes with their mindset and maintaining their mindset?
Oh, and you know what? They feel it. They feel it. They feel how you can keep your composure. They absolutely feel it, and they learn from it. They model it 100%. Yeah. So I definitely think that. I train myself, and I go through periods where I hire people to train me. But I manage myself in a sense of like my sleep and obviously my mindset and things like that. So all of my personal work has 100% trickled over to my professional work for sure. But they literally, they feel the difference in you when you're clear and concise and composed. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, mm-hmm.
I'm going to stop asking questions and let other people talk.
Yeah, no, we can just hang right here.
All right, you don't have to answer this question, but well, actually, here, the first one you can answer right now. Will you add me on Facebook? Because I see we have like 30 mutual friends. All right, cool. So that's done. Two.
Wait, say your name again.
I'm Wes.
Wes. Where are you from, Wes?
Well, I'm from State College, Pennsylvania. Then I lived in Chicago, and I recently moved to Philadelphia.
Ooh, I love Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Philly's cool. Philly's like a gritty Boston.
That's what I felt when I first moved here. And the Eagles are 10-1, which is really badass. What was it? Oh, what was that trigger? You don't have to answer that. What was that?
Oh, I don't care.
Right.
My right underarm sweats. Just my right one.
Oh. All right. I thought it was going to be like if someone's not listening. I don't know. Never mind.
Oh, no. Like in terms of a crucial conversation, like knowing your personal triggers in terms of if someone asks you a difficult question or someone confronts you a certain way or someone's doing that or someone just comes off a little too aggressive. I've learned how to know my personal triggers. So my personal trigger actually is just my right underarm starts to sweat. So as soon as I feel that, I'm like, boom, I've been triggered. And yeah, because after that happens, then like I can usually feel my temperature rise and then I'm like a freaking cobra. I'm like, so I try obviously not to get to that point. So as soon as I feel that, then I know, boom, slow down. Literally, I'm like, shut up. You'll notice my hands go behind my back. Whenever, like, so if you ever see me in a conversation and it's heated and I get triggered, you'll always see my hands go behind my back because obviously you guys can tell I talk like this. And when we're in a crucial conversation and you have a lot of big movements, you essentially try to establish dominance. So I try to make myself small a little bit in certain situations so I don't heighten the situation.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Was there anything in particular that you did to like learn that about yourself or just kind of observation just over time?
Yeah, no, I think, I don't know if you were on when I was talking about a couple of resources. I actually read the book Crucial Conversations. And that was actually kind of talking about knowing and studying your triggers and what fires you up. So that was kind of how I learned that trick. But I'm telling you, like, that was one of the biggest tricks that's kind of, helped me throughout my career. Because I was saying earlier that I can be rather aggressive. And you ask anyone who's ever worked with me or coached with me, they're like, man, like everyone will always describe me. Even Mark Verstegen will describe me on stage in front of 600 people. Are like, yeah, this is Nicole. Oh, she's intense. So I kind of have to live with that because that's just my personality. So yeah, I learned that from that book. So, yeah.
What rugby teams are you working with? Because I played rugby for a long time and I love it.
Well, the coolest experience I've had this year with rugby, and this is total name dropping, but it was cool, so I'll say it. And I actually, yeah, I mean, I can't, yeah. I worked with the All Blacks in January.
That's badass.
Man, talk about Legacy is another great book. It's really a great book. Yeah, I worked with the All Blacks, and the majority of my rugby work is actually in South America and Argentina. So Exos for many years has managed the Argentinian Rugby Union. So yeah, we work with them. I work with them, and then we're just basically building infrastructure all over Argentina to help support the Argentinian Rugby Union. So that's kind of where I spend the majority of my time. I did a little bit of work in Colombia in preparation for the Olympics with actually the women's, don't laugh, but they tried really hard. The women's Colombian national rugby team, they got a bid to the Olympics and obviously did not do very well, but that was kind of some fun, different work. Because talk about having to do things with no resources, no money. Like, man, it was cool. So those, mainly in Argentina is a lot of my rugby experience, but I will have to kind of name drop a little. And I worked with the All Blacks, with just 6 of their players earlier this year. It was the coolest professional experience I've had in 2017.
Fucking cool.
Yeah. So I'll actually be in New Zealand twice next year. Not necessarily working with the All Blacks, but working with World Rugby. And to be honest, man, I've taken all of my work that I've done in ice hockey, and I've taken all of my work that I've done in American football, and then all of my work with international football, because it's obviously a little bit more running based. And man, it's been cool. We've had a lot of success with those guys. So, yeah.
I'll give you a heads up on this. We ride out awkward silences until somebody asks a question. So get ready for it. It's just gonna happen.
Man, awkward silence is great. And you'll notice, like, you have to embrace that shit, and you just got to sit there and just be like, enjoy it and be comfortable with it. Absolutely.
I'm going to mess up the awkward silence.
Yeah.
I know. Hey, Nicole, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
There's no way you remember this, but I met you for like 5 seconds the one day you were out at Exos, like 2 summers ago. I was interning out there a couple years ago.
Oh, okay. Greetings.
Yeah.
Kieran?
So, yeah. Super. Mario's my guy out there.
Mario is my housemate?
Yeah. I saw that. Small world.
Yeah. He's my man.
So it's pretty interesting. You're talking about all the mindset stuff, and like I've tried to get into that heavier over the last like year or two. But something I always find pretty interesting is there something you do to prime yourself, like going into a big coaching session, or that and I guess a follow up is, do you prime your athletes any certain way if you're always talking about how mindset's so heavy with those professionals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have, I've learned this actually from Nick Winkelman. Nick Winkelman has kind of a certain structure, but I've found value in developing mindset weeks. So for a training block, call it, 3 weeks of work. Let's say I'm starting to work with X team, and we're kind of learning the process. Like I'll literally have on the sheet, color blue, whatever, and it says learn the process. So for 3 weeks, that's kind of my reminder that it's my goal to get these guys, number one, to buy in. So, I always say, it's like one of my taglines. It's like tie-in equals buy-in. So I set these mindset weeks. So the first one's usually like learn the process. The next, training block or next phase is manage the process. And that's not me, obviously. That's the athlete.
Yeah.
So, I'm teaching them how to manage it. So in those particular weeks, whenever I'm giving feedback or whenever questions are asked to me, I always shoot right back with a question. It's just like, hey, how did that feel? Or, what was different about that particular set or that particular rep or whatever the case is. So that training block would be managing the process. And then the last one is own the process. So in those particular weeks, like I'm not really giving any feedback. And in that situation, they're asking me for feedback. And usually they're pretty good. They're self-sustainable. And that's the goal, Kieran, because I have worked in many different organizations, and especially in international football, like it's all about data collection and testing. So you can create individualized programs. Cool. I get it. Absolutely. There's space for that. But for me, individualized training, current, like present day, means how the individual manages themselves. So, learn the process, manage the process, own the process, boom. And, you rinse and repeat when you teach them something new. So I've kind of found that when I can get to that end goal where they're owning the process, I'm not saying I take the backseat as a coach, but my job gets a little bit easier because there's some self-management involved.
Yeah, for sure. So you're even like programming like the mindset through the blocks and stuff like that.
Yep. And there's always a reminder for myself, what the goal of that training block is. And obviously we're progressing movements and we're challenging them in a different way. But I always know that because these athletes that I work with in particular, I have to leave them.
Yeah.
So I'm not there. And I always tell them, like, listen, boys, like, I'm not going to hold your hand through this process. Like, that's not the type of coach I am. Like, I'm going to teach you what you need to go, know, and ciao, I'm gone, which is probably the reason that I'm single still. But
yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So, yeah. Chris, are you smiling back there?
I'm just laughing at the awkward silence. You broke it.
I can just see your beard. It's like, woo.
Yes, I'm sure the sunlight exempt.
Do you post, what you were just talking about with Kieran, do you do that for yourself or do you put that on their programs too?
That's usually for myself.
Okay.
And we'll talk to them. Our messaging will kind of be alluding to that. And we'll tell them, be like, gentlemen, you're on your own here. So like when they're owning the process, they'll notice that I'll be like, guys, we got 12 minutes, clock starts, warm yourself up. And those are the best days. If you don't do that, do it. You'll learn so much because your clients, your athletes will start looking at you after like minute 5. After minute 5, they'll be like, what do I do? You know what I mean? So you're teaching them how to own it. So I don't necessarily put it on their sheet. It's more on my sheet.
Gotcha.
But when we kind of do I always start off my day, like with my training program. I always have a slot where it says either like the goal or the objective of the day or the training session or the tip of the day. So whenever I want the tip of the day to be, it's going to relate to the mindset week goal.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
We work with a law enforcement group that I think that would be perfect for. And is that why you were kind of like curious about that, Todd?
I mean, yes. I mean, for that, I think it would help our clients at the gym too. It's just to read that and be like, hey, get a little more buy-in. But also, with those guys, a lot of times I try to get and stand back with them as quickly as I can because, first of all, they could all kill me with their bare hands and I don't want to upset them. And then second of all, it just makes more sense because that's kind of how they have to be able to function. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've had a hard time, or I had the hard time in the beginning with international football. Just how, they're babies. Like they're the biggest babies I've ever worked with in my life. And it's funny because, as a woman and like going in and being like, all right, we're going to do this, this, and that. And like, I'm physically doing it. And they're looking at me like, what the hell is she doing? Where I'm like busting out like an incline bound. It's like boom, boom, boom. And I get up and like call it 10 steps. And I turn around and I'm like, all right, guys, we have, 5 sets of these. And I got up in 10. I need you to get up in 8. So, but because I really believe like, because I'm a woman and I just busted it out in 10, I definitely get a lot more buy-in because they're, trying to compete with me a little bit, and I'm okay because they don't, unless like they're playing football, they don't compete with each other in those situations. So yeah.
That's an interesting dynamic to pick up on because there's so many other sports. Like I grew up playing American football, and I played in college and stuff. And it's like competition doesn't turn off. We want to beat each other at everything all the time. So that's really interesting to hear about.
Yeah, we do in terms of competition. And for some reason, like that was a big topic of conversation wherever I was last. In Argentina. It's just like, what sort of team internal competition do you like to promote? And I'm like, I was like, if the goal is a high intensity day, if we're trying to hit a day where we're trying to get game like demands, I was like, I want them competing. Like I am, telling them scores, telling them times. They're even competing on like their urine test. Yeah, like how hydrated are you, bro? It's like, how hydrated are you? And we get in on all that stuff too. So we do in football and rugby, but mainly in international football. Kind of like we learned with training the NFL combine players, actually. And it's funny because it's been adopted across like English Premier League teams. Everyone now is doing flying 20s. So just the way that we have to hit that one day of max intensity in the weight room, if we're trying to maintain that, same thing goes on the field. Like we have to have that one exposure of max speed or high intensity run. So in terms of posting in competition, they know that they have that one day where they get to go full throttle, and it's their choice. It's absolutely their choice on how many reps that they do and how hard that they go. But they know at the end of the day, it's posted up in the locker rooms in terms of their times and things like that. So yeah, the competition piece is huge, especially in pro sports.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Sorry. Thought I lost you guys there.
That's good.
I've never done this before on a podcast setting, so this is cool.
Yeah. We do it to everybody. It's fun. Joe, you didn't ask anything yet. You coach a bunch of kids and stuff, man. Why don't you get in on this?
Yeah, no, I was about to ask a question. No, it was good timing. So it's been great listening to you, Nicole, and learning a lot. But so recently, as Todd was saying, I work over here at the Parisi Speed School at the Edge in Williston. So we work with a variety of age ranges, all the way from 5 years old when they're first just moving with speed to college age. But I'm currently working with swimmers right now, and my question was going to be, how do you sort of, especially with them being in the water, once we're getting them out on land, how do you sort of look at building them as an athlete and the importance of like coordination and movement, and then trying to get a little bit more specific?
Yeah. I've had some experiences with swimmers, not a lot, but I have worked with some swimmers before. When they came to me, they were looking at improving their start. So that was basically we had to work a lot of plyometric type work in the beginning. You have to take their land-based work slow. Okay. I don't do a ton of land-based work with them other than like the weight room. So they're not running, they're not sprinting, they don't need to do any of that. I personally, again, and I don't have a ton, I can connect you with someone who has a little bit more experience, but I really try to use the land-based work as their movement variability. And just, working, because they really get no eccentric load. So, doing any sort of, extensive skipping or things like that. So with a lot of my plyometrics, it's concentric only type movement. So yeah. So, but yeah, you have to be careful with them. And you have to really give them time. You have to give them a lot of time. So movement prep is going to be their big thing, but you got to be mindful, especially if they're in high school. Did you say they're in high school?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a little different. The swimmers that we worked with were kind of more Olympic level. So that's a little bit different. But if they're in high school, then hell yeah, man, they should be. Again, you still can be respectful if they don't play any other sports and do a lot more concentric only movement. So a lot of medicine ball type work. Plyometrics and stuff, but again, working on their initial push off the wall and things like that, and during their turns, and then you have all the other basic stuff. But from a land perspective, just take it easy, concentric only movement. Really looking at building their strength. So I would do a ton of sled work with them. Do a ton of sled work with them, actually holding the TRX going back so they get that isometric contraction in the upper body. Things like that, but just, don't go too crazy with them and just think about it from a movement variability standpoint.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. And going back to sort of getting them to buy into it, a lot of the time they'll see like the skips, or they'll see like quick steps or thigh drive, and they'll sort of roll the eyes, and it's just like, well, as a swimmer, but I'd say as an athlete, like when we do the skips and it's contralateral movement, and then we move into bear crawls, they kind of buy into it. But what you would go into, because working with teams, and I'm more like one-on-one and semi-private training, so it's a little bit newer to me. But as far as some of your strategies to get that trust, instead of just like, okay, like this is the way that we're doing it, and trying to convince them why, what would you say?
Honestly, what you would do with the field-based athlete on the field, do that in the pool. You can skip, you can do wall drills, you can do plyos. I call it gator walks. So like you get them in the shallow end of the pool. They're down super low, and I call them gator walks because their eyes are like this on the water, and they're literally just doing like crossover work until the water gets deeper. So everything that you would do on land, do that in the pool initially. So you can do all of your skips, all of your jumps, any of your running based stuff, and just tell them, be like, hey, we're trying to get a little bit of variability in. We're trying to move your legs in different movement patterns so they strengthen, this and that. And it is helpful for them. So yeah.
Okay. No, that's good to know as well. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Joe. Cozy Joe. So yeah.
When's this long-term athletic development thing going to drop? Do you have any idea?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I've been working hard on that. I have an amazing team that's been working with me here. By the end of December, I'm moving fast. No, but at the end of the month, I'm launching a YouTube page, and it's cool because I actually just started on social media this past April. Like I'm not, I'm just one of those coaches that whatever, I'm more of a live in person type of coach. So I just actually started a social media page on Instagram in April. And I mean, I don't know. I think it's doing well. Like I'm not as frequent, and I definitely don't follow all the social media rules. But I try to keep the messaging on my professional page. I try to keep the messaging directly to the athletes. So I write in really simple terms, and I try to create or put drills on there that athletes can start to watch and be a part of. So my YouTube page, so it's going to it's going to launch at the end of the month, and it's going to start slow, man. Like, I'm going to have, simple things. I recorded an intro. I recorded like a short piece on sleep. And I probably recorded about 80 movements. And then I'll do another 80 to 100 movements, probably in March. So I'm going to start with that. So it's going to be a free resource. Honestly, if you ask me like what my goal is and why I resigned from my full-time role, transitioned into a consultant, is because my goal is simple. Like I want to find a way to help 1 billion kids, 1 billion kids. So I think the way that we do that is creating more resources and using and leveraging social media. So yeah, that's dropping. I'm super pumped about it. And there's no pressure. Like I'm not trying to, create this like big name for myself or anything like that. Like literally I'm keeping the goal, and that's to try to get in contact with 1 billion kids. So, so my goal is to connect with other coaches and literally develop tools that you can use through my resources to like give to your athletes. So like I'm going to eventually have like templates, and all this is getting worked on right now, where if you say, okay, I want to take these 5 YouTube videos, throw them on a template and text message them to my players. That way they know, hey, I need you to do these 4 drills today, or whatever the case is. They're going to have links to videos, and, the goal is just to kind of, teach movement virtually.
And then are you going to drop all the videos at the same time, or are you going to like do it bit by bit? Like you said, you made like 80 or something. Are you going to do them? Are you going to upload all at the same time, or are you going to do like 5 a week or something?
No, I'm going to upload them all at the same time, man.
Good.
Yeah. I might post them differently on social media. And honestly, I don't have a strategy. I don't have a game plan. I'm working with someone who's going to help me manage all that. And yeah, like, I still coach full time. So, I mean, I'm physically not going to be uploading all those videos. You know what I mean? And that's not where I want to waste or spend my time, not waste. So yeah, so I'm going to probably have someone manage that while I keep doing my thing. So yeah, I'm not going to do, I don't know. What do you think I should do? Is it a 5 at a time or drop all 80?
Well, no, I don't have any expertise in that area, so I don't know. I don't know.
Anyone have any suggestions?
I mean, I think you could do it any way you want, really. I mean, I think if you put them all up and then just like people will find them eventually. Sometimes it's nice because it's like somebody's finding out like a really well kept secret that's been there, and they're like, oh shit, look at all this. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think you could do it either way.
Yeah, I mean, for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to throw them all up and yeah, be like, hey, everyone.
Cool, man.
So yeah, if I kind of seem excited, I am, because I just watched like the intro video, and like I look like this, you know what I mean? I mean, it's shot professionally and things like that, but I tried to be real and kind of speak to the athletes. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it. So I would appreciate your support when it does drop.
Of course.
Yeah.
As long as you add me on Facebook, we're good.
No, did you? Yeah, I'll have to look for your friend request for sure.
You're like planting in the picture, like something, I don't know.
I'm not very good at Facebook. I'm better on my Instagram.
There too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as you can see, I only have like 55. Yeah, I only follow 55 people, so I need to get better at all that kind of stuff. So, but again, no, yeah, don't hold anything against me. I'm just not a social media person.
That's all right.
So, yeah. So
Nothing wrong with that. Well, cool. Anything else, guys, for Nicole before we cut her loose? No? Are you frozen? Oh, she's frozen. No, there she is. Okay. You were cool. Well, this is awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. All the best, and let me know if I can help you guys out in any way.
No, you're awesome. Thanks so much, Nicole.
Thank you.
Ciao.